Hello YouTube, and welcome again to my channel. This time I wanted to talk a little bit about dynamics of the body of elders. And there's a lot of things that figure into this that have a somewhat drastic effect on the congregation. So Spike, harkening back to the video from Elders Gone Wild, once again has a crazy hairstyle, but he's also got his little buddy with him here. So, elder body dynamics, or politics if you will. They're very different from body of elders to body of elders, and they're very crucial to the success or failure of individual elders and indeed the body of elders within a congregation, and they are very crucial to the success or failure of individual elders in the bigger scheme of things, such as within the circuit or within the district or within the organization. So there are lots of different types of bodies of elders out there, all the way from bodies that really do care about their congregations to bodies who are really just out there ruling with an iron fist. And the dynamics on that body depend upon a lot of things. What is the majority of brothers on that body like? How closely do they follow society's principles? So on and so forth. So this opens up a whole can of questions. Many people out there have lots of experience with elders who do things their own way, do whatever they want, and run roughshod over pretty much anybody who gets in their way. Those experiences are by no means isolated. They're all over the place. And why is that? Well, the way that being an elder works sets you up to put yourself in a position of power from which it can be difficult to remove you. So you can get away with quite a bit of stuff when you're an elder, and you've got to do something, fairly bad to get removed. And if the other brothers on the body are your buddies, well, then that increases the amount of stuff you can get away with by quite a bit. So if you have a body of elders who are all conspiring to run their own little kingdom, and each one of them is doing their own little thing, and they're all covering each other's backs, well, that can be quite a situation. You can have quite a bit of abuse. You can have a lot of different things. So this is kind of a lead up to a question that I was asked about elders covering up for the mistakes of their children. And their ability to do that varies widely from body to body. So the closer a body is to a group of guys who's doing whatever they want and covering each other's backs, the elders will be more likely and have more ability to cover up the mistakes of their children. If you get to a body of elders where the elders actually care about the people in the congregation, chances are the elders are not going to be able to cover up their mistakes of their kids. Because indeed, if someone living in the household of the elder commits a sin requiring judicial action, it is almost automatic that you have to review the qualifications of that brother. In fact, it is automatic. So on a good body of elders, I'll say good meaning people that care about the congregation. Good here is, of course, a relative term because elder bodies have to work within the framework they're given, which is defined strictly by the governing body, extremely strictly. So on a body of elders that actually cares about the congregation, if one of the elders' children commits a sin that requires judicial action on behalf of the body of elders, that brother's qualifications automatically have to be reviewed. In those cases, he probably will not be able to do much to help his child. The only thing he might do to help his child is to coach them behind closed doors how to navigate through that judicial committee. And sometimes that happens. I don't know how often. But if you go to the other end of the spectrum of bodies that are just doing whatever they want, and it's a boys' club, and they're all sticking up for each other, they can easily cover over whatever they want and make things go away. So how often does that happen? To be honest with you, I don't really know. On the bodies that I served on, I really did not experience that. But I heard of individuals who did do that, though I didn't really see it firsthand, so I can't really comment on it. But there are certainly a number of stories out there about individuals who have covered over for their children, and it is very easy to believe that such a thing happens. So in cases like that, what you get is the elders apply one standard to individuals who are not related to them, and they apply a much different standard to individuals who are. And the sole reason for doing that is so that they can maintain their authority. The only thing important to them in that case is maintaining their authority at the expense of whatever else they really don't care. And that's kind of a side effect of the whole elder arrangement as far as Jehovah's Witnesses are concerned. So no doubt you have a number of guys out there who are probably not the greatest of parents, doing God knows what. I'm not even going to guess, but their kids, as a result, wind up doing God knows what, and they get covered for. And I fully believe that that happens on a somewhat regular basis, depending on which congregation you're in. So my guess is that if you're on YouTube, you're more likely to be in a congregation where that type of thing has happened than to have been in a congregation where things work, quote unquote, the way they're supposed to, and that type of stuff doesn't happen that much. So what's the split? I don't know. I've heard estimates of 50%. I think it depends on where you are. It might be more than that. I don't know. But this gets back to a video I did earlier about how the elders are appointed and whether or not Holy Spirit is involved. And I was asked a question about people who were appointed elders in the past and they're getting reappointed. And once again, that depends heavily upon the body, and it depends heavily upon the person in question. So, for example, let's say that a brother stepped down for a legitimate reason, and later, after he took care of whatever it was, he was ready to serve again, he would probably be pretty easily reappointed on a body of elders that was working the way it was supposed to. But now you factor in politics. So when you get to a body where there are politics going on, it depends on who liked that brother, who didn't like that brother, so on and so forth. If there are enough people on the body that don't like him, it's going to be very difficult for that brother to get reappointed. So let's say you have a body where people are doing their own thing and running crazy, their elders gone wild, and this guy that stepped down was actually a guy who cared about the sheep, and he tried to call the elders to task for it. Well, if that individual tries to get reappointed, I would imagine that the brothers who are elders gone wild are going to do everything they can to keep that brother from getting reappointed because they want to keep having their party. Situations I was aware of, that also works the other way. So, for example, let's say that somebody was an elder, but maybe they stepped down or were removed for whatever reason. And later on, it comes up as to whether or not they should be reappointed. Well, in my experience, there was a brother who was an elder who had stepped down for reasons that were legitimate, but his situation was not such that he would actually really qualify according to the strictest standards. But despite that fact, the brothers on the body wanted to reappoint him for political reasons because one of the brothers was his father and another brother was trying to court favor with that brother's father. And there was an entanglement, shall we say, where getting that brother reappointed would benefit the second brother who was standing by the first brother who was the brother's father. So that works both ways. There can be nepotism. It is certainly not unheard of. And there is basically a boys' club in lots of congregations where elder bodies will appoint individuals who will keep the status quo and will not rock the boat. So realistically speaking, this helps you to evaluate whether or not Holy Spirit is involved in any way, shape, or form in the appointment of the elders. Looking from the inside out, it's pretty obvious what the answer is. Holy Spirit is not a factor in the appointment of elders. And this is just because of the types of things that go on. If Holy Spirit were involved in any way, shape, or form, when some of the egregious wrongs the elders commit happen, they would be dealt with. It wouldn't take years or decades for that type of stuff to be solved. It would be taken care of, but it's not. So, elder body dynamics and elder body politics have a lot to do with who does and who doesn't get appointed, with who gets away with what, with who doesn't get away with what. And the politics basically come down to what type of men are serving on that body of elders. If they are the type of men that honestly believe they're doing the right thing and honestly care about the sheep or the congregation, or the sheeple, if you will, more often than not, they're going to do things closer to the way that they theoretically should be done according to the governing body. Which doesn't always make it a loving arrangement, but it makes it a more accurately predictable arrangement. When you get a bunch of guys who are just on power trips and have big egos and want things done their way, well, they're probably going to do whatever they want, and at that point, all bets are completely and totally off. So you will hear stories about individuals who didn't qualify that got appointed. You will hear stories about individuals who were overqualified but never got appointed. And it all comes down to which congregation were they in, who was on that body of elders, and what was going on in the background. A lot of that stuff comes into play, and it varies a lot from congregation to congregation. So I have not served as an elder in numerous congregations. I think to get an idea, you would probably have to serve in many different congregations, because my feeling and my impression of that is that can vary quite a bit from place to place. So Spike is representing that variation by having different sunglasses and a different hairdo. And now he's got his little purple minion buddy there with him. So that's a little bit more insight as to what goes on behind the scenes with bodies of elders. And as you watch these videos, what I hope that you're processing is the fact that the elders aren't these special people who have special authority from anybody. Elders are just people like you and me. They have their failings, they have their shortcomings, and there is absolutely no reason to believe they have any more authority over you than anybody else. In fact, let me tell you a secret. The only amount of authority the elders have over you is the amount of authority that you let them have over you. They act as if they have the authority of life or death over you because that's what the organization tells them. But that's all a facade. It is not real. They don't know everything. They don't have special insight. They're not going to find everything out. And you have no duty and no right to tell them anything because they have no special appointment from anybody. They are merely servants of a corporation, and that is all they are. And that corporation is extremely legalistic. So that's the case. Hopefully I'm helping to demystify elders here, because I remember when I was growing up, I thought they were something special, that if you did something wrong, they would somehow automatically find out. And let me reassure you, that is not the way it works. All right, so thanks for watching. Talk to you next time.